Services. Right Team Services helps schools, small businesses, and nonprofits turn ideas into impact through clear messaging, effective writing, and strong connection across websites and social media platforms. When you need results but don't quite have the words to say, let Right Team Services provide that voice that you need. Learn more at rightteamservices.net about how we can help you tell your story. Okay, Matt, this is kind of a fun part of the show that I always enjoy, getting to just kind of go scatter shooting all over the world and seeing what we can pull off the internet with some crazy stories or just some things we want to highlight. So once again, you're up in the batter's box. Tell us what you got for us this morning.
Well, first, I like to go local as much as I can. Wiley University softball is playing Stillman at home. It is the first time in over 20 years that they have played a softball game at home. So just thought that was pretty cool. Really, really neat. I don't know, just kind of a neat little story there. Love that they have softball going now. Excited for them. But really, and I alluded to this earlier, I wanted to talk about and not really about the game last night so much, but a couple things from Arkansas basketball. One,
you're just going to stick that knife in a little bit deeper, aren't you?
Not going to talk about the game at all. We're talking about we've talked about all the freshmen in college basketball right now. Arkansas's point guard, Darius Acuff, he's averaging over 20 points a game. He's averaging over 5 assists a game. He's shooting over 40% on threes, and his assist to turnover ratio is better than 3-1. No other Division I player of any class has ever done that in a season. And he's not just averaging over 20 points a game. He's averaging like 22. He's not just averaging over 5 assists a game. It's like 6.3. So, like when you're looking at something like that, I know that there's other more physically dominant players in college basketball that are going to be drafted higher. Whoever comes out of the draft with Darius Acuff as their point guard is going to be really happy. I think you and I both wouldn't mind seeing it be the Mavs.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you, do you think he is a true point guard at the NBA level? Because if he is, that's a perfect fit for the Mavs.
I really do, because don't get me wrong, the dude can shoot, the dude can score. He's averaging 22 points a game, but he's averaging 6.3 assists a game. He's going to be the first player in the SEC since I think Pete Maravich to lead in scoring and in assists. But he does not turn the ball over. He has the ball in his hand like 80% of the game, and he averages 2 turnovers a game. Yes, if you are a threat to score, you always make the right play and you don't turn the ball over, you can be a high level point guard at the NBA.
I just think he would be a perfect fit for what they're trying to build around Cooper Flagg. And I think it has to begin at the point guard position. And I don't know if you saw Sean Miller's post-game presser last night.
Yes.
He's a big believer.
Absolutely.
He said he doesn't understand why he's not in the conversation to be the top pick in the draft. And I don't know that the Mavs are going to be able to tank enough to get enough, to get lucky enough to be pulled in the lottery for that number 1 or number 2 pick even, which I believe, you're probably looking at Devanza and, in my book, Cam Boozer, probably is the top 2 for me. But if you can't get there, Darius Acuff would be a great consolation prize, so to speak. Say it 4 or 5 for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But the other thing I want to talk about last night, and we mentioned this earlier at halftime of the game, Arkansas announced that a statue would be built of Nolan Richardson outside Bud Walton Arena. He's brought us our only national title. We have, in our school's history, been to 4 Final Fours. He went to 3 of them. 2 national championship appearances in back-to-back years and a win. This was, look, I was 7 years old when he was hired. This
40 minutes of hell, man.
This was who I knew for college basketball. And I think one of the reasons it's so neat that they're finally doing this and I'm just going to kind of go a little poetic here, I guess, but I don't know that you or I could ever fully grasp what it would have been like to have been the head coach of a major college program in the South as a black man in the 1980s. And the stuff that he went through, would not wish on my worst enemy. And not that I have enemies, but to do what he did, knowing what he had to navigate. His daughter died of I believe it was cancer during his time coaching. So you're having to deal with that, plus the awful racial stuff that you're dealing with, plus the general pressures of being a coach, a lot of which he created such a high standard. A lot of the pressure he faced, he created it because here he is in year 5 or 6 going to the Final Four. And when the tensions hit between him and Frank Broyles, the AD at that time, as he navigated us into the SEC and just immediately walked in and started dominating SEC basketball. Him and Rick Pitino at Kentucky, that was the rivalry, and he even made a statement, because do you know who he replaced as coach?
And I can't remember that far back.
It was Eddie Sutton, who then went to go coach at Kentucky. And Nolan was never one to shy away from speaking his mind, which might have gotten him a little trouble, but at the same time, you understand why he did it. He was just very upfront. He said, if Eddie Sutton did what I did here, y'all would already built him a statue.
Mm-hmm.
And the implication was there. He's a white guy. Y'all would have already done it. And
right.
We had a game. Nolan had a rough year. We got in trouble with the NCAA, which was a little bit of a joke. You and I have shared our thoughts on the NCAA. 1996 season, after the back-to-back national championship appearances, we had to rebuild. He brought in an elite recruiting class. A lot of them were JUCO. One of them got declared ineligible halfway through the season, so he had to sit out. The next year, he transferred to Memphis and played his last year at Memphis. And then the NCAA came back and said, oh, by the way, we were wrong. We're sorry. We shouldn't have done that. And the kid actually transferred back to play for Nolan for one semester the next year. So we got ramrodded by the NCAA. Nolan kept it going into the early 2000s, but in his last year, we had a rough year. We weren't going to make the tournament. And he was feeling the pressure. And, he made some quote, I believe it was after a loss to Kentucky. You know what? If they want to pay me my money, I'll walk right now. And he was frustrated. But it's hard to get away with saying stuff like that. And it was almost as though Broyles, the AD, took it as a affront to his manhood. And so that's what he did. And Arkansas basketball for 15, 16, 17 years
wandering
just
in the
languished.
wilderness. Yep.
Yeah. And until Eric Musselman, who I got a problem with the way Eric Musselman left, but at the end of the day, we got John Calipari and he put us back on the map. So you know what? I still love you, Muss. Not your biggest fan right now, but we got John Calipari, so I'm all good. But that was, I remember going to so many. You're the picture behind you. I have been into that arena hundreds of times. I worked it as a college student. I went there several times. My dad had a friend who had season tickets. We got to go a lot during the national title year. Some of my favorite memories are trips up to Fayetteville for basketball games. I have stood in an elevator with Nolan Richardson. I have not been next to any human being that had a more just presence about him. I mean, you walk in and he kind of nods at you and you kind of nod back, and then you don't make eye contact anymore because you just don't know, And so last night to hear what he said, he had a brief little talk. He said, he said, I'm going to keep this brief. I want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say thank you to all of you for your support. He said, I want to thank the coaches who did such a great job with me and put up with me. He said, I want to thank all of you for putting up with me. And all I want to ask is that you call the Hogs. And that was it. And they all called the Hogs. And it was just a neat moment. It was well deserved. It was long overdue. Nolan was not a perfect person, but he was a heck of a coach and put up with more than you or I would probably ever put up with in our lifetimes combined if we lived 100 years old.
Yeah. And I want to say this, since we're talking about Arkansas, and again, you and I kind of, it's good natured, of course. That's just kind of a good natured rivalry, at least on the Texas side with Arkansas. Of course, it's been decades since it's actually meant anything.
Sure.
But my son, of course, played at DBU in baseball, and they went up to one of the regionals. I believe it was his sophomore year. They got sent to the regional up in Fayetteville. They're at Arkansas.
Yeah.
And he told me, and even recently we were talking about this, he said of all the places that he got to enjoy going as a college baseball player, that was the most impressive, fun place to go because of calling the Hogs.
Yep.
Right. And that may be the most iconic moment as far as, a home field advantage or whatever you want to call it, a home cheer, whatever you guys want to call it, is that calling the Hogs thing. And if you've never seen that or experienced it, you have to do that at some point because you guys got it going on pretty good. I don't know that it's done y'all much good recently in a lot of your sports. It seems to be working in basketball and baseball for sure. Maybe football will get there at some point, but yeah, he did say that the Arkansas trip that particular weekend at that regional was probably the most memorable point that he had in his entire college career. And
it's
they got
crazy.
Finals. They got beat in the finals. Arkansas beat them in the finals, but anyway, he really enjoyed it. He said there was nothing like seeing at that baseball field, which is beautiful in and of itself if you've never seen Arkansas's baseball facility. To see, just covered in red all around the ballpark, and every one of them in unison doing the Hog thing. So,
and
anyway.
The beauty of it is you can be in a crowded space of hundreds of people, and if three of you decide to call the Hogs together, the whole room's going to know what's going on. It's really unique. There's not many cheers like it. And I grew up with it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, that was a neat moment last.
And of course, what we do with Bevo, we just let him chew the cud and do his thing. Do his thing, Bevo.
That's
he goes after. He's more apt to go after a bulldog than a hog. He's proven that for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Was that all you had on your section?
That's it, man. That's it.
I want to get into mine here real quickly. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, of course, everyone's seen about, and I've mentioned it already, this trade that went down. And I believe the Rams are trying to recreate the past in some ways with this, trading, now going all in. We've seen them do that before. They have very little regard for their draft picks. I think that's putting it quite bluntly. And I heard this today, and I didn't quite believe it, but I've gone back and I've looked. Since Dak Prescott was drafted, which that was the draft in which the Rams took Jared Goff first overall, right?
Yeah.
Since that draft in 2016, the Rams have had one first-round draft pick. They used that a couple of years ago in Jared Verse, their defensive end, right?
Good draft pick.
Every other year, they've traded away their first-round draft pick, or it's been traded away for players. Veteran players. Of course, the biggest of which was Matt Stafford in and of himself. And lo and behold, what to get him? Got him a Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
You talk about a team that somehow finds a way to stay competitive, and this year going all in. They're going all in. This is an all-in move. When you trade for a cornerback and the haul that the Chiefs got in return, they got the number 29 pick in this year's draft. So a first rounder. They also will receive in this draft 5th and 6th round picks. And next year they get 2027, they get a 3rd round pick. So 4 draft picks, 2 of which are in the top 3 rounds in the next couple of drafts for one player. That is an all-in move. And now the thing is they have to re-sign this cornerback, and to make it worth their while, which they'll probably do, because they're not paying rookies anymore.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting. Again, this is kind of the blueprint that they use to go win another Super Bowl. And of course, we saw, the success they had this past year, made it to the NFC Championship game. And, and probably, at least they were my pick to win it all.
And they weren't far away from
weren't very far away.
Game.
So anyway, the Rams have stamped their case to be another contender, a big time contender in the NFC by going out and getting this lockdown cornerback that the Chiefs had. His name's Trent McDuffie, not OJ McDuffie. I said OJ, but it's Trent McDuffie. And the Chiefs are said to be in on possibly re-signing Tyreek Hill. They're going to be in position now to draft potentially Jeremiah Love at number 9. Most mock drafts have him not dropping past them. But I also read yesterday where if they could be in the market to potentially offer George Pickens a spot, which now they do have those 2 first-round picks that they could give up. Technically, if they wanted to sign George Pickens, they could do that this year, which I kind of would look. If the Chiefs are willing to give me 2, and this is all hypothetical in my mind as a fan here, I'm thinking if the Chiefs sign George Pickens, the Cowboys require and would receive 2 first-round picks for that. If I'm Dallas, I say, give me the first 2, give me your 2 picks this year, and I have 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting to see how that plays. Man, this is going to be one of the. You got March Madness happening, and you got NFL free agency starting. This may be the best 2 to 3 week stretch we'll see as far as excitement throughout the entire year.
Stretch it out a little longer because opening day of baseball.
Oh yeah, can't forget
the Masters. I mean, like, come on,
yeah.
I can already hear the soft piano music. Like it's here.
Well, segue into baseball here, and I've kind of griped about it on the show a little bit, but there's some great college baseball happening right now. I mean, there really is. We've seen the upsets in the midweek, and I do realize that ESPN is kind of locked into college basketball right now throughout the week for most part, every single night. But it's a shame that we really don't see college baseball and or college softball more on national TV, which I call national TV being ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU maybe, not ESPN Plus, which is just basically them picking up a streaming feed from the individual universities, right? They're just running their broadcasts on ESPN. But in Major League Baseball, after this season, I believe they're no longer on ESPN, right? I mean, we've already talked about that. ESPN's gone completely to a completely different platform, in that they're going to be Women's Sports Sunday, right? They're going to be focusing on women's sports on Sunday nights. So they are just completely dropping baseball, Major League Baseball, on Sunday night. I don't know why, I don't want to just kind of ask this question just to kind of get some general thoughts. Maybe why is baseball no longer, in general, why is baseball no longer, it seems, an attractive TV option for the major networks? I do know Fox is continuing their major league coverage, but again, they kind of pick and pull from, regional areas. And, I just renewed my subscription to Victory Plus to be able to watch the Rangers, because that's what you have to do in order to watch their games now.
Yeah.
They don't have their own regional network anymore. So, I don't know why. There is some answer to that. And with everything else that goes on in baseball, look, I'm pointing my finger right back at the commissioner.
And that's
maybe the worst commissioner in sports, in my opinion.
I feel like with baseball, look, you and I have talked about this. It is what it is. It's obviously if you're into the more cerebral aspect of sports and the chess game, the chess match, all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I mean, I get it. You like baseball, but it is much slower paced. We've talked about this. It is in a world where so many, like you look at NFL, NBA, and MLB, and no one likes the amount of money. The average Joe doesn't like the amount of money being spent and how much it costs and all the rest. Well, look, if everybody there is making millions or sometimes billions of dollars now that you get into baseball, and it costs an arm and a leg to be able to go watch it, you darn well better at least entertain me. You better. I mean, look at what was happening. What's one of the biggest things Adam Silver's had to crack down on the NBA is this load management, because people are paying a lot of money to come see these games. They ought to be entertained. It's all about it's about entertainment. NFL is always going to entertain. That is why it's that big a deal. It is going to. There's something about that is entertaining, and it's just for baseball for me. For Major League Baseball, I am entertained the first week of the season. Opening day is a big deal. And I am entertained in September and the postseason, especially if my team's in it. But you're talking about April through August. I'm just not entertained by it. I'm not. It's the nature of baseball. I mean, like I'm at the Marshall White House game calling it the other day. And again, I understand the chess match of it, like I've already said, but like we're about to wrap up the second inning and we've been on the air for almost an hour. And I'm looking at Brandon at commercials and I'm like, are we getting home at midnight? You know, like what's about to happen here? And there were a ton of pickoff throws, which you've got to have. You've got to keep runners on. White House. I'm not saying any of it's bad, but I'm saying we live in a world where we expect instantaneous stuff now. I mean, I'm just sitting here getting mad because I can't figure out the internet. You know, baseball's not made for that. It's just not. And when they're charging an arm and a leg, although kudos to the St. Louis Cardinals, as we mentioned a moment ago, that unlimited concessions, love that deal. But when you're charging what you're charging, those players are making what they're making. You better entertain me. And if you're not, I'm going to find a different option.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a niche sport, but it is just so part of our history. I mean, it really is. Baseball was the game up really through the 70s. Then the NFL, of course, exploded and has taken over in terms of, there's no doubt that the NFL is the most popular sport, maybe in the world, probably next to soccer, probably
football. Yes.
Depending on who you, and they're even, making inroads into that with all of these overseas games that they're playing. But with it being a niche sport, and my probably expertise, if we have any on this show, would probably lean toward baseball/football, just in terms of interest and knowledge and things like that. I'm a little bit, and again, old school, but I get a little bit defensive when we start changing the crux of the game that I grew up loving just to try to get viewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am not a fan of the limited pickoffs, and I know it can make a football, a TV baseball broadcast somewhat tedious. I'd have to see data on just exactly, how bad that was in terms of extending games and throwovers and things like that. But I mean, you cannot, in my opinion, just in that particular rule, you cannot limit a pitcher's ability to hold a runner on base. That's part of the fabric of the game. And when you do that, you're giving obviously an advantage to the offense and the runner itself. And that's going to have, over time, that's going to have impact on the record books, because guys are going to be inflating their stolen base numbers, because who wouldn't try to take a bag if you're somewhat, average speed and can get a good jump? I mean, who wouldn't try to take a bag if there's no chance whatsoever that, a pitcher's throwing over there?
Right.
It's taking that out of the game. That's just one example of the strategy part. And you mentioned the chess match that goes on. That's just part of it.
Yeah,
I mean, it just is. It's just part of it. And I think a lot of the tinkering with this has actually hurt baseball, because of purists like me don't want to watch it anymore. And a lot of, because they've just tweaked with it too much. the whole, putting the runner at second base. I hated that when I was in college at softball.
Yes. I'm not a fan of that.
But I mean, I have also said in games where I would be like, good gosh, with these two pitchers going at it and not getting tired at all. I mean, you could literally probably sit out there for 25 innings in a scoreless softball game. That's just the way it goes. I could see it in that sport. But in baseball, I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just not, it doesn't feel like the game that I grew up loving and participating in. And I think they've actually hurt themselves by actually tweaking it too much. That's my opinion. But for whatever reason, man, there is no doubt that baseball is having some issues in staying in front of a national audience with these networks. So, but again, I did pay my $100, and so I'm going to have access to Ranger games this year, and I'll be watching them online. But I do have access, which I didn't have a couple of years ago. So proud to have that. Okay, I wanted to close out here again with another Arkansas tie. And of course, the passing of legendary football coach Lou Holtz yesterday. And I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet Lou. He was probably before your time at Arkansas. But I'm sure that you know all the stories and have heard his time with the Hogs. And, growing up a Texas fan, I kind of have two eras, maybe really three eras in my mind of Lou Holtz in terms of love, hate kind of stuff. Of course, back in the day when he was at Arkansas, Texas and Arkansas were it's kind of like not what it is right now. I mean, they were deep rivals there in the old Southwest Conference, and Lou was part of that. So if you're a Texas fan, you probably grew up with Lou not being such a favorite guy for you. He goes to Notre Dame, and I'll just remember this. So my in-laws were big Notre Dame fans, right? And they loved Lou Holtz. They loved Lou Holtz. And somewhat, I don't know, somewhat kind of, I wasn't all in with this, but back in the 80s, of course, you had the U, and a young guy like me was very impressionable. And so I started following Miami. I would wear all the Miami gear and all this kind of stuff. Well, when I started dating their daughter, right in the middle of the whole Catholics versus convicts stuff. And, I had many an enjoyable evening of pretty much good-natured. Sometimes they got a little bit out of hand in terms of folks being upset at me with wearing my U memorabilia on at their place while they're playing Notre Dame and talking bad about Lou and saying how much they cheat. And anyway, it was fun. It was fun back then for the most part. Kind of made it rough on me trying to continue my dating life at the time. I didn't know when they might kick me out. But anyway, that was some fun memories for me with Coach Holtz. And man, he was a character. But I mean, you can't help but love the guy really since he's been retired, and actually, became a commentator and again, I'm not making fun of him at all. He had that little lisp thing going on. That was even more hilarious. And that's probably what he's most well known for is just, the speech impediment that he had that didn't really keep him from talking at all.
No.
Right? If you wanted to lose opinion, you just asked him and he'd give it to you.
I remember him on College Football Final or whatever it was. Him and Mark May used to go back and forth. I mean, it was hilarious. And when Lou got animated, like, look, we're not poking fun. You were like, wait, what did he say? Like, it was tough to say. And of course, I grew up in Little Rock. I went to Little Rock Catholic High School. A lot of Notre Dame fans there, and a lot of Lou Holtz fans there. And of course, my first Razorback games to attend, he was the head coach. I don't remember a lot about it, but he had some really memorable games as head coach. I mean, I remember, and I want to preface this by saying I am in no way like bragging here, okay, because Texas dominated Arkansas in that football rivalry. There was no question about it, but everybody used to always just put up like signs that said 42-11 when we played Texas. And I didn't understand what in the world that was. In 1981, Texas was number one in the nation and came to Fayetteville. And one of the few times we beat Texas in Fayetteville, we beat number one Texas 42-11. Lou Holtz was the head coach. He had a memorable win over Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. 31-6. And of course, back in that day in the late 70s, teams ran the ball a lot. And our top 2 running backs were suspended for that game. And our third stringer, Roland Sales, ran for 206 all over Oklahoma. Lou Holtz was the coach. So, I mean, some of the more memorable Arkansas football moments happened under him, no doubt about it.
There's a couple of quotes here, and there's several. I mean, you can look up all kinds of Lou Holtz quotes on the internet. One of the most quotable coaches probably in history. The thing that I admired most about him was, his faith, and, he was unapologetic about that. That kind of got him into a pickle in a couple of these debates somewhat in terms of just what he stood for. And I go back to that just a couple of years ago, the feistiness that he had when he called out Ryan Day. And then Ryan Day threw it back at him later that evening. And I'm like, there's the old man Lou Holtz in his mid-80s still stirring stuff up. But he was telling the truth at the time, right? But it was just fun to kind of watch him with that. But here's a couple of these quotes that I found yesterday that I think are just kind of explain exactly who Coach Holtz was. And of course, he did pass away yesterday at the age of 89. But this was a tweet from John McCallum. He says, "I was at the Texas Tech game in November '77. The Hog fans threw oranges on the field near the end of the game as we beat Texas Tech. After the game, when asked about the oranges, Holtz said, 'I'm just glad we aren't going to the Gator Bowl.'"
That's great.
Okay.
Love that.
And then this was a quote. This was a quote, and this was a tweet actually from Joe Piscopo. Everybody knows who Joe Piscopo is, or our age probably does.
Yep.
If you want to be happy for an hour, eat a steak. If you want to be happy for a day, go play golf. If you want to be happy for a week, go take a vacation. But if you want to be happy for a lifetime, put your faith in Jesus Christ. That kind of sums up who Lou Holtz was.
Yep, that's right.
So anyway, rest in peace, Coach. We wanted to make mention of that here today because look, man, the older I get and the more these things happen, it's very realistic. It's very real. It hits very real when you start seeing these childhood and young adult guys that you see, they're no longer with us anymore. So very sobering in many ways. But